All right, everybody, we are live. Dynasty Mir, Search for Huru. And we have the brother Top 10 Africa on with us today. And we're going to be discussing how Africans can move forward together as one. So, brother Top 10, thank you so much for joining us again today. And let's
Thanks.
go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
No problem, man. So, moving forward together as one. Now, I hear from a Pan African perspective, in order for Black people to succeed or move forward, it has to be together as one. We can't do it on an individual basis.
Yeah, exactly.
But then at the same time, you have a lot of Africans and Black
Yeah,
people, but mainly a lot of Africans that say it's impossible because of the tribalism, ethnic groups. It's just, it's 54 countries in Africa now. Um, they have the diaspora who's separated. It's just too
yeah.
many factors for us to move together as one. How do you,
Okay.
what would be your response to people who, I guess, make statements like this?
Well, yeah, that I guess that in the past that was a very valid argument. But if you really look at it, one of the few positives of the colonial era was that we all had to learn a colonial language. Like in the past, you had like thousands of ethnic groups and everybody spoke their language and everybody was divided. But now you either speak in English, French, or Portuguese, one of those three languages. So now we can communicate with each other. And you see, the thing with the ethnicity thing is that it's usually groups that live right next to each other that have beef with each other. But that should not, it's like we have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this: we've all been attacked, we've all been victimized, we've all been attacked. And yeah, we might not hold hands and hug up on each other, but we still need to unite so that we can defeat white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very real conscious effort to divide and conquer us. And a lot of Africans don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to unite because it's the only way we can survive.
Correct. All right.
So,
So you mentioned the language aspect as far as us uniting. Now, a lot of Africans will say, okay, let's not use the language of the colonializer. Let's choose one language that's an African language. Then we get split there and debate about debate about that. What are your thoughts on that as far as using one single like English versus adopting an indigenous African language as one language for everybody?
my feeling on that is I don't see, language, it's just a tool. It doesn't really mean, yeah, it's a cultural thing, but it's also just a tool. And if we're just using English language as a tool to communicate with each other, I don't see what the problem is. Everybody like in Nigeria, they have it where people learn English language, but you also learn your local language. I think it's too late to start saying, okay, let's all adopt Swahili, or let's all adopt, I don't know, Lingala or something. I think it's too late for all that
Mm-hmm.
because let's be honest, there are more books written in English than perhaps any other language. Like you go to Germany, they're teaching their kids English. You go to any of these European countries, they're teaching their kids English because they know that, hey, because of America and because of the British Empire or whatever, that is the dominant language now. And I'm not saying that we should just utilize English alone, we still have to focus on our own local languages, but you know, we already established in certain ways. You understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's like, why should we start all over again and say, oh well, let's use Swahili or let's use this language? Then that's another argument. Which African language should we use now? That becomes another argument.
Mm.
You know,
Right, and that's
and
the thing, exactly. And so we went from, okay, let's pick up an African language, let's leave the European language, let's pick up an African language. Then it went to, okay, how about Swahili? Well, Swahili's not really African because it's Arab influenced and
yeah, yeah,
whatnot or whatnot. Okay, well, what about this language? Well, you know what I mean. So that's the so you're absolutely right. That's the issue is, really uniting on a common language. Um, so I'm right, and that, and I mentioned, suggested English because that's the language that's being used around the planet right now. You know, but again, it went from English to, okay, we don't want to use a language that was utilized by the colonializer. How about let's use Swahili? Swahili. Then it went from, well, we can't use Swahili because it's Arab influence. Okay, well, so you're absolutely right.
yeah. So it's like, you know, I think that there'll probably never be just one language, but we can just preserve our local languages and just use English and French to communicate with each other, which is what a lot of Africans do. A
Right.
lot of Africans, they speak their own languages, but they also speak English or they speak French or they speak Portuguese. And so they preserve their own local languages while at the same time, they're able to, communicate in the English language or in the, but the truth is some of those older languages are dying out because they're not doing a good enough job of preserving them.
Right.
But that's so I'm like, okay, we just got to use some language, and there's more like take you for instance, you from America
Mhm.
and you speak English, and I'm from Nigeria. Like my parents are from Nigeria, and I speak English, and we can communicate perfectly and get the job done, whatever it is that we want to talk about. And you have people from the Caribbean that speak English too. So that language it just allows us to communicate with each other, and that should be the important, most important thing.
Mhm. Now, what would be your thoughts on religion as far as moving forward as one?
Yeah, religion is another touchy issue because, like, are you Muslim
Man,
or
I'm by fall. I'm a Sufi, but African indigenous voodoo is first. Indigenous African religion is first. I put that
yeah?
first. You know, so I'm not compromising that at all.
Because I'm a Christian, right? And for me, that's what I believe in.
But
I
my thing, I'll put it like this: if need be, I would dump. Uh, I would say Sufism. I don't practice Arabism. I don't practice because right now a lot of people practice the Islam that we see is Arabism. It's not really Islam. I don't
oh
practice that, but I would be more than happy, have no issue if it came down to it, to dumping it for Pan-Africanism.
see,
Like
so
yeah, not it won't be a problem.
because in Nigeria, the way traditional religion is viewed, it's viewed in a very negative light. And, you know, Islam has been in Africa for a very long time.
Mhm.
Christianity has been in Africa for a very long time. And the white white man might come and say, well, this is our religion. Nah, Christianity is not a Western religion. And that's what I try to convince people, because they might say, well, there's a white Jesus, but Jesus was not from Europe. He was from the Middle East. And all these, and if you look at it, the Ethiopian church is older than most of the churches in Europe. And so,
right. But let me cut you off right there. And I promise you, we're not going to debate religion. Well, we are as far as in this context, but my issue with the Christianity and even Islam, Christianity argument, as far as it being in Africa, is that the form of Christianity that many of these Africans practice is more coming from an European influence. They're not practicing the Ethiopian Orthodox form of Christianity. When I come into Africa and I see pictures of white Jesus everywhere, pimping pastors, King James Bibles everywhere, that's not the African Christianity. So we need to really be specific. Again, I understand that Christianity comes from what is known as Africa or whatnot, but the Christianity that the majority of Africans practice is the European influence version. But go ahead.
Well, you're right. You're right. And Christianity, Europeans use that as a tool to colonize Africa. But we have to be smart about, I can't impose religion on anybody, because people have a right to choose which religion they want to practice. But I personally choose to practice Christianity because I feel like it's the right way. Now, at the same time, people can practice whatever they want to practice. I don't really think that religion is just something personal. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Something personal where you find your own way, and you kind of stick with that. You find your own way, path. And I don't really like arguing about religion, because you can't really prove anything to anybody anyway. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. But my opinion is that we shouldn't fall for the lie that Europeans introduced Christianity to Africa, because Christianity was already in Africa. Maybe not all of Africa, but it was. I know it was in Egypt. It was in Ethiopia. It was in Sudan. Sudan was formerly a Christian country before it became a Muslim country. Same thing with Egypt, because these are countries that are right next door to the Middle East. So it's makes sense that they would have the religion come in before it was brought to them by Europe, before the Europeans came in.
No, and again, I agree, but it's just the form of Christianity that's being practiced is not the African Christianity. I mean, that's just the point.
We have to be smart about that, and not just allow them to use that, because I've seen some of these white Christians. I've seen them go to Africa and just try to bamboozle people. I've seen them try to do that. And because we have to be smarter as Africans in terms of the religion and understanding the true history of our religion. Because I've seen them go into Africa and just try to bamboozle them with I remember watching on YouTube one time, and there's this white dude with this black dude, and he was telling them oh, and he was getting the black dude to say some really dumb stuff oh, the white man came to save us, or something like that. And I was like, whoa, this guy is just totally brainwashed. And we gotta be conscious of that.
No, you're absolutely right. I want to give a shout out to Tina Thomas. Thank you so much for the super chat. Make sure you email me your address so I can send you a postcard. Me with the King of Alada, or me with the Ashanti Royal Guard, just let me know which one you want. But thank you so much for the super chat. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. Now, so we covered religion. So what do you think needs to be done? Should Kweku, thank you for the super chat. So what needs to be done? Should we
Like my
abandon religions and just stick with indigenous? I mean, okay, again, Christianity and Islam did not come from Europe, but again, the form of Christianity, Islam I see practice is that of the Arab or the European in Africa. So should we abandon, we'll just say Western in quotation mark religion and just focus on indigenous African religion?
Nah, no, I don't agree with that. I like I said, I'm a Christian, and you're right in the sense that the Westerners took the religion, and you know, when we talk about Christianity, it actually originated in the Middle East. So we had to go get that original Christianity if you're going to be a Christian. But you're right. What we practice is not necessarily, it's been influenced by the West, you know, the King James, but we can still find the original Christianity. You can still find it. And, you know, you might say that the Ethiopians practice that more, but I personally, because I'm not too cool with the Africanist religions, and I'm not too cool with the Islam, but for me, it's like, I'm not here to judge anybody. I have people in my family, personally, that practice African systems. Like my uncle that I used to live with, he was very much into Ifa and, you know, all of that. And in most Yoruba families, or you find that, you find people who are Muslims, you find people that are hardcore Christians, and you find people that practice are hardcore traditionalists. And we just kind of like agree to disagree. Like, okay, you do what you do, I do what I do. And like my uncle that I lived with was into the Yoruba traditional religion. And you know what? He's a grown man. I have to respect that, but I'm going to stick with Christianity. You know, and that's just the way we roll. But for me, I don't think that religion is really. I don't think that religion is like when we talk about African unity. I feel like we have to start with the intellectual unity.
Okay.
We have to start with the intellectual and creative unity because we gotta like help ourselves in terms of the scientists, the engineers, and all these type of people working together to kind of make Africa independent of Europe.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, where are all the doctors? Where are all the scientists? Why are they not working together? Why are they not collaborating on research? That's how Europeans advance. Like all the European scientists, they talk to each other, they work together, they collaborate, and they develop all these internet devices and computers and you know, and that's how America does it. That's how Europeans do it. That's how the Japanese do it. But when you go to Africa, it's like they're not even talking to each other. They're not even collaborating. Most of the African scientists, most of the African engineers, they're working in the United States. They're working in the UK. And nobody's putting Africa first. Very few of us are putting Africa first, if you really want to get down to it. Even when it comes to economics, most African countries, they do more business with the European colonizers than they do with the neighboring African countries. Like you've been to these African countries, right? And you see that they do more business with Europe than they do with Africa. So this is what I mean by African uniting, in the sense of how do we do more business with each other? how do we intellectually work together?
Hmm.
Like right now, I can tell you there are like 6,000 Nigerian doctors living and working in the UK.
And here in America, probably more.
There are probably even more in America. Meanwhile, there's people dying all over Africa, but everybody wants to live the comfortable American life and just turn their back on their home country, the country that actually paid for you to become a doctor. There's so many problems in Africa. Look at what happened in Liberia. We had an Ebola outbreak. How many Africans were sent there to help out? Like, you know, in so many ways that we could be sharing ideas and just helping each other out. But no, we want to live the American life. And that's why me, myself, I'm guilty as well. But when I'm done with my schooling, I'm going back to Africa to set something up. And I just feel like there's a lot of, this is something that I study, and I see that there's like a lot of people who are back home who are doing something. They actually took their skills and they used it to build a business in Africa and to connect people and to solve problems. But those are the real heroes of Africa. All
Mm-hmm.
those Nigerian doctors living in America, in the UK, they're not the heroes of Africa because most of them are not. Yeah, they might send a little bit of money back home, but we need people on ground solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like Africa's already backward. Africa is already behind. And why should we be helping the white man get richer when we still poor? And that's what I mean by African Union.
Mm. All right. So you mentioned us doing business amongst each other.
Yeah,
One issue I see, and I give this example. In Ghana, you have a car company called Kataka,
yeah,
African-made automobiles, but
yeah,
Africans would rather buy non-African-made automobiles still in Ghana, Ghanaians.
yeah,
So
that's true.
do we have an issue with Africans not seeing the value in African-made or African products made by African hands?
100%. 100%. Because we believe that, oh, it's European, it must be superior. And that's not always the case. In fact, a lot of times it's not always the case. Like, you look at food, for instance, like an American will sell you something and it's got GMO, all kinds of GMO food stuff where you don't even know what the hell you're really eating. Whereas an African, when he produces something on his farm, it's more organic and it's probably healthier for you.
Mhm.
But because of the way we've been programmed, we just automatically assume, oh, if it's American, it must be superior because, hey, it's American. But I'm not going to say that Africa has all the answers because we don't. But there's a lot that Africa produces that is better quality. There are a lot of things that Africa produces that America does not produce or Europe does not produce,
Mm.
like coffee, for example.
Right.
Africa produces coffee that Americans don't really produce or Europeans don't even produce at all. But people, rather than go to Ethiopia and get 100 like Ethiopian original coffee, they rather go to Italy and buy coffee from Italy that was originally from Ethiopia. You, know, you can see the kind of craziness there.
Right.
Or rather than go to Ghana and buy Ghanaian chocolate,
Right.
because there are actually companies in Ghana that produce chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
they rather get some Swiss chocolate.
Right.
But the Swiss chocolate is watered down. It's watered down, overpriced chocolate compared to the Ghanaian chocolate.
Right.
But still, we have to change our consciousness. One of the things when we talk about the roadmap for development and African unity is to first change our mindset, to first change our consciousness. And then we go to an intellectual union. And finally, we have an economic union. And then we have a social union, an economic union, and like that. But we have to first change our mindset, because I'll tell you right now, like in Nigeria, they had this program when we had the economic crisis. They had this program of buying Nigerian. And then, but you find out that you have companies that are set up in Nigeria producing like chocolate drinks, Nestle set up in Nigeria. But you find out people still prefer to buy the imported Nestle product than to buy the Nigerian Nestle product, because they're just convinced that, oh, it's got to be better.
OC in the chat room said that Nigeria is not a country; it's what's called a neo-colony. Like many other African so-called countries, this is what Kwame Nkrumah predicted. We have to redefine the countries in Africa. He makes a great point. The borders in the countries that we have in Africa right now were drawn up during colonialism. Should we, I guess, draw those lines and recreate these countries?
Well, my thinking on that is might have to do that in certain cases. Like, you know, we just had South Sudan created out of Sudan. If the people are just not working, you know, if they're just not comfortable with each other, you know, it's like you have a brother, right? And let's say you have a brother, but just because he's your brother you don't necessarily need him. You don't necessarily want him to bring his family and live with you. Like, you might not want that. And so, in as much as we're pan-Africanists, you know, we must also recognize that people need their own space, and people want their own space. I feel like I'm a pragmatic person. I'm a practical person. I just believe that people deserve to have their own space, you know. And in as much as we have to unite, we should also allow people to have their own space. And so if a guy is like, man, I want to have my own country and I want to break out of this existing structure, then yeah, we should. I'm not against that. I'm not against self-determination. But at the same time, you know, we just have to be practical. You just have to be practical.
All right. Someone in the chat room said pan-Africanism is an ideal. It's not a plan that can be implemented. What is your thought on that? I mean, is pan-Africanism delusional?
It is absolutely not delusional. In fact, pan-Africanism is the only hope for the Black man. And those of us that live outside of the continent, we see that more than those that live on the continent.
Right.
To a degree. I think that we see it because when you're Black and you're outside of the continent, you're not getting put first. You don't control the resources. You experience the racism when you're Black outside of the continent. You experience racism. You experience the difficulties of being Black. And then you see the negatives directed towards Black people.
Right.
And so you understand more the need for unity and a united front. Because there are Africans in Africa who think the white man is their best friend. They think the white man is their best friend. They think the French is their best friend.
Right.
And when you live outside of Africa and you experience the racism, you know that that's not true.
See what other questions we got in the chat room. So, politics. How can we move together as one with politics? Because it's just you have tribal or ethnic group politics. Let me ask you a question, Top 10 Africa. How do you feel about the term tribal versus ethnicity or ethnic groups? Do you feel as if somebody uses the word tribal, like they're making you seem primitive versus the term ethnic group?
I think the word tribal doesn't even apply to most African ethnic groups. And yeah, it's also used in a negative way to make African countries seem primitive.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been to Africa, right?
Right.
Take the Ashanti Nation now. Can you really describe that as a tribe?
No, absolutely not.
Exactly. A lot of these things that they call tribes, they're nations. Multiple cities, they have multiple towns, they have sub-rulers, and they have a paramount ruler. And these are highly sophisticated political structures that they have. So you can't really call them tribe, but people are just used to the word tribes. That's why they use it. But in reality, it's really an ethnic thing.
Right.
These are ethnic states.
Okay. Okay. So politics. How as far as moving forward, what do we need to do to unify under politics?
Okay, I'll just lay out what I think about that. When I say I'm a pan-Africanist, I'm a practical pan-Africanist.
Okay, what is that? What does that mean? Go into detail about that.
What I mean by that is we don't have to hug and kiss and be totally joined at the hip, but we can still look out for each other. We can still help each other out. We can still work together. Like some people think, oh, let's just have one Africa, one government. I don't believe in that. I believe that everybody needs to have their own space. They need to have their own political space. But at the same time, we can sit down at the table and discuss with each other and say, okay, this is what our problems are. This is how we can help each other, and so on and so forth. So politically, do I believe in one state? No, I don't think that's practical. I don't think that that's practical. But I believe in the African Union as an effective political body.
Okay.
I believe in the free trade zone. I believe in a free trade zone.
Okay.
I believe in a free trade zone. I believe that we can unite intellectually in terms of collaborating on research or business or whatever. And yeah, it shouldn't be so hard to move from country to country, because a lot of these countries in Africa, as an African, you can't just fly into Angola. You need a visa.
No, is Angola part of the ECOWAS? Do you know?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Like, I know they have the sub-regions, and that's a good thing where people can move around more freely, but it's like, that should be a continental thing. That's what I think. It should be more of a continental thing and not just a sub-regional thing.
Somebody in the chat room just said, he made a great point. How do we stop Black jealousy? He feels as if Africans do not unite based on racial lines. How do we stop Black jealousy? Like, what would be a solution to that? How do we prevent African jealousy?
Black jealousy is basically um, something that when people when people don't understand that they have a bigger enemy, like they don't understand that they have a bigger enemy. And once you understand that you have a bigger enemy, you're going to try to work with your brother to overcome that enemy. And first of all, the continent of Africa has more to offer every black man than the United States.
Go into detail.
More re-
Let's build on that. Go ahead.
and so black jealousy, when you talk about black jealousy, you have these kind of rivalries, right?
Hmm.
Between African countries, Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and maybe African Americans versus Africans and Jamaicans versus XYZ, but we're all the same people. So that should be the number one point that is driven, that we're all the same people. The blacks in Jamaica came from West Africa,
Right.
Central Africa. The blacks in America, they came from West Africa and Central Africa. So there's no point fighting with them when they're not your primary enemy.
I agree. I agree. Now, but some would say that you're right. The blacks in the islands in America came from West Africa, but since we've been in America so long, we're now our own ethnic group for the most part. What would be your thoughts to get on that? That we're our own people now.
Well, that's true. That's true. But it's like I totally understand that in the sense that, but just really think about the history of Black people in the Caribbean, America. I watch a lot of these ancestry DNA things,
Hmm.
and you find out that they usually have African bloodlines from different African countries, right?
Right.
Nigeria, Mali, Cameroon, Congo. So African Americans and Caribbean blacks are actually the first Africans to kind of intermingle. You understand
Right.
what I'm trying to say?
Understood.
Like,
Yeah.
like if you go to Nigeria, like before that, most people just married their own tribe or whatever. But American blacks and Caribbean blacks were the first to kind of really intermingle. And so, yes, they might have some European DNA included in that, but they were the first to really marry across tribes and race. Because when they all it's like when they all got to the New World, it wasn't just saying, "Oh well, you're not from my tribe, I can't marry you." They were like, "Oh, whatever." They intermingled, they intermarried with each other. So your bloodline is, is a pan-Africanist bloodline in a sense. You
Right.
understand? In the sense that you have different. You're not just one tribe,
Correct.
and it shows you that these things are not. People can get along. You know, people can get along. It's not that serious. Where it's like, oh, you can't get along with this guy because he's from this ethnic group or this country or whatever.
I want to give a shout out to Ekintunde Bowden. Thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Thank you so much. Um, so moving together forward as one, what issue should all Black people be focusing on across this planet? What should be the one single issue that we all should be focusing on?
Well, like you said, the black jealousy thing, the
Hmm.
black rivalry thing is something that is there and it has to be overcome. And people have to be open to each other in the sense that, hey, you know, you have a problem, I have a problem, let's work together.
Right.
Let's work together. So the mindset of working together has to be dominant.
Mm.
And the mindset of doing business with each other has to be dominant. And there has to be an investment in that. And you know, you have the African Union, and the African Union is supposed to promote that. But it's mostly a political talk show. It's mostly where politicians go and just talk stuff up.
Right.
And I just feel like the biggest problem with Africa is that we're not conscious of white supremacy racism. Because when you talk about white supremacy racism, you're talking about something that is very highly organized, and it's a government system. There's a government system designed to divide people and to conquer people. And I don't think that people in Africa are educated enough to really understand that. Even those of us in America. I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
Like blacks in America,
Mm-hmm.
you're very conscious of a system, right? And you talk about mass incarceration, you talk about the war on drugs, you talk about Jim Crow. This is white supremacy in action, right?
Right.
And Africans, a lot of them, even in Africa, you have apartheid in in South Africa, and you had all these policies, but we have to look at it at a global context. That it's not just localized. That this is something that is worldwide. That white supremacy is something that is worldwide. It's very deliberate. Africa is being deliberately exploited.
Mm-hmm.
Africa is being deliberately excluded. And we have to understand that white supremacy is something real that affects people's lives. You look at Haiti,
Right.
when he won its independence, they put a embargo on them. They forced them to pay some ridiculous amount of money in order for them to be free. And this is how white supremacy works. The World Bank, the IMF, all of these agencies are white supremacist agencies that are designed to undermine Black African nations.
Mm.
So once you understand that there's a global plan to undermine Black Africa,
Right.
then you should be eager to unite. You should be eager to unite so that you can fight against it. Because all these individual countries that try to fight against it, they all failed.
Mm. Which brings me to my next point then. So we have a lot of self-defeated Black people amongst us, meaning, hey, Black people, Black Americans, the diaspora should not build in Africa because of Liberia, and I put that in quotation marks. South Africans should not have land reform because look at what happened in Zimbabwe. What would be a response to remarks like that?
Well, these are just childish people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really understand the Black man is perfectly capable of working hard for himself.
Right.
Like all of these European countries,
Mm-hmm.
why do you think they came to Africa to find labor,
Right.
to build countries? Brazil was built by the Black man. America was built by the Black man.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these new world countries, it was the Black man that did all the work. So the problem is not whether or not the black man can do the work. It's about the black man working hard for himself. We need to stop working hard. Yeah, they talk about South Africa, Zimbabwe, all these countries.
Right, right.
But
I'll call it the self-defeated Negro's excuse to not build in Africa. I did a video on that.
exactly, like, but when you go to Zimbabwe or whatever, who are the people actually doing the work, the grind? It's not the white people.
Right. Oh, there was a video on that in South Africa, how people keep saying white farmers, but it's the black people doing all the work and the white farmers just sitting, like here in America, sitting on the porch sipping lemonade.
Exactly. It's the black people that are actually out in the fields and picking the fruits and doing all the white farmer is just sitting somewhere, just counting his money.
Right.
But it's the guy that's actually doing all the hard work. So when they say, oh, and we have universities in Africa, we can learn from China, we can learn from Russia, and there, so it's just this mentality that we must be subservient. We must be beneath the white man. Otherwise, things won't work. And that's BS. That's total BS. You look at a country like Botswana. Botswana is a country that works very well. And it's a black country.
Right.
I mean, even in a country like Senegal, yes, I'm sure they have problems, but I'm sure it's a lot safer than most of America.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
America is not exactly paradise on earth. I mean, look at what's going on in America. You got all kinds of violence.
Oh, correct.
So, and so it's like, what comparisons are they making? Or look at countries that white people run where they discriminate against black people. So, I mean, to say that we should just accept subserviency is just a childish kind of, I don't want to man up and do the work. I don't want to go to college and study. I don't want to man up and work hard for myself. I just want the white man to tell me what to do and pay me some peanuts. That's what it sounds like to me. It's a very self-defeatist mindset, like you said. It's a self-defeatist mindset. And we can't allow that because there are a lot of talented black people around the world. There are a lot of super talented black people that can manage businesses, that can run businesses, and we have to allow them. We can't allow self-defeatist people to come and give us that nonsense that, oh, the black man can't do this, or the black man can't do that, because and that's just the way I feel about that.
So, we brought up the example as far as in South Africa, as far as the farmers. Let me stop for a second. Can you please hit the like button, people? As you come into the chat room, hit the like button. All right, let's get these likes up. But as we mentioned, we gave the example as far as the South African farmers and the workers are all black. Now, some people will say, as far as say your home, the worker doesn't get the credit, or the employee doesn't get the credit or ownership. It's the actual homeowner who gets the credit, or who owns the home. So again, when we talk about what's going on in South Africa as far as the farmers, the black workers don't get the credit. Obviously, the owners of the farm, they take all the glory and the credit. What are your thoughts when people make that response? What are your thoughts on that?
Because it's the truth. Nobody talks about, even in America, let's use a company like McDonald's. The CEO of McDonald's, he's not flipping burgers. He's just sitting in a nice office, making some management decisions. But it's the little guys that make the burgers. It's the little guys that make the company. Without the little guys doing all the work, then that company don't exist. But they want you to believe that, oh, they're so super smart that they got something that, that they're so super smart and you are stupid, and but that's not really the case.
Okay.
But for me, I feel like there are lots of successful black companies. Like look at the Dangote Group, like the
Right.
giant, the richest guy. That's his
Mhm.
company, 100%. He founded the company. He built the company. There are a lot of smart black people that deserve to have the opportunity to pursue their ambition and to show what they got. If because once again, the problem with the self-defeatist people is that they believe that the white man has their best interests. And the white man does not have their best interests at heart. The problem with the house Negroes is that they believe that the white man has their best interests at heart, and the white man is only interested in exploiting you for his prosperity. He's not trying to work for you. He's not trying to labor for you. He just want to use you to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't see past that. And that's why that argument is rubbish. Like if look at America. If the civil rights there was a civil rights movement, right? And the civil
Right.
rights movement was all about allowing black people to have opportunity, right? They want equal rights, they want equal schools, they want equal opportunity. Now, a lot of black people have taken that and have become very successful, right? Now, if it wasn't for, and there were those people that also said, well, let's not upset the white man. Let's just stay in our place. Let's just be second class citizens. Let's not ask for too much. But that's ridiculous. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what they're saying in South Africa. Like, oh, let's not get the land back because, oh, some of us might not be successful. Yeah, some of you might not be successful, but some of you are going to be greatly successful.
Mm. Now, what role will Black Americans play in this? Because, obviously we don't have a nation state. So what role will Black Americans play in, what we're discussing?
Black Americans have access.
Because this is the
They have,
argument. My bad. This is the argument. The argument is, how can Black Americans speak on building a nation when we have no nation? So go ahead.
well, that's true. Well, what Black Americans are Americans. They built America, and they have every right to everything in here because they work hard to build America. At the same time, they also have every right to connect to Africa if that's what they want. Like I remember when there was a crisis in Argentina. A lot of Argentinians, they just went back to Europe and said, hey, my grandfather is from Italy, and the Italians gave them citizenship. Like, oh, your grandfather's from Italy?
Wow.
Okay, you're.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what happened during the crisis in Argentina when there was an economic crisis. A lot of people that just went back to Italy and said, oh, my grandfather came from Italy. Boom, I want citizenship. And a lot of white people, they do that. They have dual citizenship. A lot of white Americans have dual citizenship. They have citizenship with Israel and America. They have citizenship with Germany and America. And so why can't African Americans have dual citizenship? You
Right.
just go to, you know, so it's like white people do that all the time. All these Latinos, you think they give up the citizenship of Dominican Republic? No, they have dual citizenship. So African Americans also have that opportunity to have dual citizenship. They just have to find a country and say, hey, look, I'm a descendant of Africans that was taken over to America. I want to have dual citizenship too. And I don't know what the policies are in all these countries, but I don't think that's not a crazy argument. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me because a lot of white Americans that have dual citizenship, they're white in America and they got the citizenship of Italy or whatever else country. But African Americans have
go ahead.
access to knowledge.
Mhm.
African Americans have access to knowledge. They have access to technology, and they have access to like as someone who's lived in Nigeria, and I lived in America. Like just me living in America, I see a lot of things that I can do in Nigeria. I see a lot of opportunities. I see a lot of things that are better done in America. You understand what I'm saying? Like when you live in America, you're exposed to a lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas that you can take back. You can take back and be successful. Like I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
There's this lady in Nigeria, and she owns an internet company, Main One Cable.
Mhm.
She was educated in the U.S. and she started to work for Verizon, and she moved up the ladder, and then she was Nigerian though, but so she was working for Verizon. So the telecoms industry in Nigeria was booming. They came to America, they recruited her, and she went back to Nigeria. And then she saw that there was not enough internet capacity between Africa and the rest of the world. So she organized financing and she used our know-how and our knowledge to build an internet cable, a submarine cable from Europe to Nigeria. So that's just one lady. She used her expertise, her net connection to actually to get a cable built from Europe to Africa, because that's how the internet comes. And that's just one lady, and she was able to do that. So a lot of African Americans, they have skills, they have knowledge, they know people, and they can use that skills to kind of build something in Africa.
Mm.
Whether it's something small or big, doesn't matter.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna ask, we'll say, 3 more questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right. So first one out of the 3. How do you feel about? Let me pull up the exact question. Can you speak on the current Chinese presence on the continent?
I mean, some people say it's it's bad. Some people say I think it's good. I think it's not perfect, but I think it's good because for 450 years, European plundered Africa. They gave us nothing in return.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Chinese are investing. They're building infrastructure where Africans are going to China to do business, and all of a sudden Europe has a problem. They're telling us, "Oh, the Chinese are bad." I think that Africa has long needed an alternative to Europe. We've badly needed an alternative to Europe because it goes back to what I'm saying. Europeans, they don't come to Africa to help you. They come into Africa to exploit you. They have a
Right.
colonized mindset. Now, some people say Chinese are no different. I personally disagree because China was also a country that was colonized, and China is part of the developing world. So they understand us in that manner. But at the same time, I'm not saying that they're perfect, but I'm just saying that Africa just needs an option. It's like we cannot trust the West, so we just need an alternative. And so it's not a perfect relationship, but I think it's a good relationship.
Mm. All right. And another question is, why? Let's see here. How currently, how do you think Africans on the continent are attempting to improve the quality of life for blacks in the diaspora?
Well, a lot of Africans on the continent, they view blacks in the diaspora as doing well. They feel like, they grew up watching the Cosby Show, they grew up watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So a lot of them are thinking, wow, these guys are living really well. Of course, they are more sophisticated now, and they're starting to learn more about the challenges. But at the same time, Africans don't, you know, Africans, I think a lot of them are kind of scared to speak out against the West. Like African leaders are kind of scared to speak out against the West because, they have they're like, oh man, the United States will cut off foreign aid or do or whatever, whatever. But the truth of the matter is, African Americans and Africans in diaspora, they need to see Africa as a resource,
Mm-hmm.
as a place where they can go and get money and get rich, because that's what Europeans do. They come to Africa to take away resources and make money for themselves. And so politically, African leaders, they might not be speaking out so much because they don't want to offend the United States. But at the same time, there's a lot that we can do to help ourselves.
Mm. All right, and then the last question was, if I could find it, man. It's just there's so many people, everybody in the chat room. Thank you so much for joining. Where's this last question at? Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna find it. There was one more question. So we had the China, we had the Africans present, and I mean, what role they're playing in Black America. Brother, I'm trying my hardest to find this last question. Now, if you have a question, go ahead and if you had a question that I did not answer, or we did not cover, please go ahead and type it in right now. If there was one more question that I wanted to ask, it was a good question that we needed to cover. Akintunde, what's your question? Oh, here we go. African Union. What role do you think the African Union is playing? I mean, do we, for what we're trying to do or accomplish, do we really need to evolve the African Union?
I think that the African Union is a political talk shop union. It's a place where African leaders go to and they chat. I think that we live in the era of the internet. And we live in an era where you have your platform, which is connecting Africans, and there's so many platforms that can be created where us as the people on the ground, we can reach out to each other. We can build Facebook groups and YouTube channels, and I actually have a plan of building a website to kind of promote African kind of economic integration. But I'm still in the process of working on that. But it's like there's a lot that we can do. The African Union is just it's very, very important, and it has to be included. But there's a lot that we can do to reach out to each other. Like what you're doing now, you might not think that it's very big, but it means a lot. It means a lot to the people that watch your show, and it means a lot. And there are other channels on Facebook groups and stuff like that, where people can reach out to each other and start to build like a social kind of network. And I think that this is the way to go, because AU is more of like an elite kind of political talk show. And I think what really needs to happen is the ordinary people need to reach out to each other. And now that we have the internet, which is the most effective way, the internet is the most effective way, we can use that to reach out to each other. And that's what I think the future is going to be. How we're going to leverage the internet to unite and talk to each other and share ideas and share business information. And I'm actually trying to work on a software program to do that, but I'm not anywhere close to starting, so I can't really talk about it.
Okay.
So
all right.
yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so yeah, that's what needs to be done. More of us need to be doing what you're doing, which is using the internet to connect people and connect people in different ways.
Okay, Akatunde, I'm trying to find your question or your statement. I can't. Okay, so we need to see Africa as a resource. I think that was your statement. That's which is correct. You are right. We do. But brother, Top 10 Africa, give everybody your contact information. Also, they want your email address. Some people want to reach out to you.
My email address is tjnigeria@gmail.com. I'll just type it in.
Okay, go ahead and type it in, tjnigeria@gmail.com. Okay, and then any closing statements? Go ahead, and please, everybody, and do me a favor, type in your YouTube page too, so people can go to your page and subscribe. In fact, they can just click on it. There you go, guys. Make sure everybody who's watching this go subscribe to Top 10 Africa as well.
Subscribe to my channel. Yeah, that.
All right, perfect. Anything else? Anything else you want to cover before we're going to go ahead and close out? Anything else you want to say in closing?
Yeah, let me just say this. Pan-Africanism is a must. It is not optional for Black people to survive on this planet economically or in any kind of way, intellectually, creatively. Pan-Africanism is a must. It's not optional. I don't care how well you think you can do by yourself. Pan-Africanism is a must. These white people ain't your friends. So that's all I got to say on that.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you're new to this platform, please like, subscribe, share. Everybody who super chatted, thank you so much for super chatting. Please go to Search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also go to searchforuhuru.com. Go to africapersonified.africa. Also go to dynasamir.com and go to amazon.com. Search your name, Dynasamir. Please buy a book. Again, everyone, thank you so much for coming. Till next time, I will be back on a couple more times today. So thank you so much for joining us. Till next time, peace.